No matter which way you choose to look at it, things are getting ugly for Red Bull. The collective head loss of the Milton Keynes team over the Mexico Grand Prix weekend was like an old person getting hit by a frisbee. Difficult to watch, but something you simply cannot look away from. We already went into excruciating detail as to just how badly the star driver and championship leader, Max Verstappen, messed up in Mexico. But we were merely scratching the surface in regards to just how badly Sergio Perez has screwed himself over at his home Grand Prix. For a while now, it's been clear that Red Bull are trying to cling on to Sergio for dear life in the hopes that he turns it around, with his financial backing seeming to be a pretty major influence on Red Bull holding on for this long. However, the dismal on-track displays have now been matched with an absolute bombshell, which could see Red Bull pushed over the edge. Not only that, but Perez seems to have gone through all 5 stages of grief over the weekend, with one being more prevalent than any other: denial. Want to know why the Red Bull civil war has a new front? It's getting ugly for Perez the tighter he tries to cling on, but could his bitterness be the thing that pushes him out the team? And stick around, because a financial incentive may point to the fact that Perez already has one foot out the door. The last thing that Red Bull or Sergio Perez needed is for the Mexican driver to have the homecoming that he had in Mexico City, and that is a pretty major understatement. If you cast your mind back a couple of months, Red Bull claimed that they were sticking with Perez as the upcoming rounds were a strong point for him, with a particular focus being put on his home race of Mexico City for both a mental boost as well as a financial incentive for both Red Bull and the sport as a whole. Now, however, it appears that all the goodwill that has been afforded to Checo has run out, as Christian Horner has now alluded to the fact that the Sergio Perez experiment is seeing diminishing returns for the team, something that the rest of us could probably have, and indeed did, figure out months ago. Following the Mexican Grand Prix, the Red Bull team principal had this to say when asked if the team would see out the rest of the season with Sergio Perez. Look, as I just said, that scrutiny is always going to be there. There comes a point in time that difficult decisions have to be made. We're now 3rd in the Constructors' Championship. Our determination is to try and get back into a winning position, but it's going to be a tall order over these next 4 races. Formula 1 is a results-based business, and when anyone is underperforming, of course there is always going to become scrutiny on that. As a team, we need to have both cars scoring points. That is the nature of Formula 1. The last thing Horner had to say on the matter almost sounded like the team felt defeated in their pursuits to get Checo back up and running, with it almost seeming that the sheer amount of effort put into the Mexican driver just to see no results was baffling. From the team's perspective, we are working with him as hard as we can to try and support him. We've done everything that we can and will continue to do so in Brazil next weekend, but there comes a point in time that you can only do so much. So surely then, this is good news for Liam Lawson, right? Yuki isn't favoured by Red Bull and there aren't any other drivers available that fit the billing, seeing as how Red Bull let the opportunity to re-sign Carlos Sainz slip months ago. Well, it may not all be so straightforward for Liam, who didn't have quite as glowing of a race this weekend as last time out in Texas, as his fracas with current seat warmer Sergio Perez left a sour taste in the mouth of the man that gave him his chance at RB, as well as the man he is looking to replace. Marko did not mince words when giving his thoughts on the collision between the 2 drivers, saying, "It was an unnecessary collision, where I see Lawson as being more to blame. If it had been someone else that Lawson was fighting, yes, I'd like the aggression, but not the sister team." But all of the negativity put towards Lawson by Marko is undone if you consider one thing. Perez should never have been in a position where he was fighting with Lawson in the first place. If this was a one-off issue caused by qualifying misfortune or a turn 1 incident, then the fact that Perez was rolling in the mud with an RB could be dismissed as a one-off freak incident, but that is categorically not the case. Q1 exits are becoming more and more commonplace for Perez than the Haas and Williams cars, and the fact that he was down fighting with Lawson in the first place is something you can't really blame on Lawson. Yes, he got his elbows out and fought hard, and sometimes pushed it right to the edge. But surely, if there wasn't collusion between the 2 teams influencing the race, then it shouldn't be a problem he was fighting with a car that he was directly competing with for positions, right? Well, that's another issue we can discuss some other time, but the main point I'm trying to get to is this. Lawson showed more bite in those few corners with Perez than Perez has shown this entire season, and while he has seemingly been given a slap on the wrist, surely Red Bull have to sit up and take notice of a driver who is willing to do what is necessary to come out ahead in a corner, or does that just stop if the driver's name isn't Max Verstappen? However, despite Lawson just fighting what was in front of him, he was quick to try and dial back the relations from boiling point to a simmer by claiming that his on-track aggression and hilarious showing of the bird to Checo while overtaking was outside of his character and not what the team wants. I don't think that's what Helmut likes. It's not my character, not something you should be doing. It's obviously one of those in-the-moment things. He spent half the lap blocking me, trying to ruin my race, so I was upset. But it's not an excuse. I shouldn't have done it, and I apologize for that. When speaking about flipping the bird. When speaking about the incident, Liam said, "I left him space into turn 4 and he was coming in very late. Honestly, I tried to give him space. He drove me off track and then he didn't give me space into turn 5, so you know, it's unfortunate about the tension, but I don't know where he wants me to go." Checo was never going to react well to Lawson's move, however he believes that the Kiwi may well be shooting himself in the foot with his aggression. Lawson has shown that he isn't exactly shy of getting his elbows out, even with people that do not concede ground, and it has resulted in some fairly sketchy moments. Fernando Alonso and Franco Colapinto both have a reputation for no-nonsense driving, and Sergio Perez clearly has his own reasons to fight Lawson hard, which has certainly created instances of tension that have often spilled over on track. According to Checo, however, in a statement I'm sure doesn't come from sheer bias and bitterness, Lawson needs to pipe down and gain some humility. I don't have any relationship with him. I think the way he has come to Formula 1, I don't think he has the right attitude for it. He needs to be a bit more humble. When a two-time world champion was saying things last weekend, he completely ignored him. It's like when you come into Formula 1, you're obviously very hungry and so on, but you have to be respectful as well, off track and on track. I don't think he's showing the right attitude. I think he's a great driver and I hope for him that he can step back and learn from it. The big issue for Checo, however, is not that there is another driver on track gunning for his seat, or that Red Bull is becoming disillusioned with him, or even that he just isn't doing what is needed of him. It's that his wallet power for the team is set to be drastically reduced. Carlos Slim, one of the richest men in the world and major backer for Sergio Perez, has reacted negatively to the increased presence of American competitor AT&T at Red Bull. The American telecom company has upped its sponsorship and it has caused Slim to consider dropping Red Bull from Telmex's sponsorship list, a telecom company that Carlos owns. Slim seems to be able to see the forest from the trees here, as he insists that the telecom company will stick with Checo no matter where he goes, but that its time supporting Red Bull may well have come to an end, saying, "The issue of Checo's contract is independent of the issue of our sponsorship. It has always been like that since he signed with the team. But if there was no longer the opportunity to continue with the team, we would certainly continue with Checo. The intention is to continue with Checo. Wherever he is, we will be with him."